This video is now in session, and the Taliban has officially reclaimed control of the entire, well, I should say most of the entire nation of Afghanistan. They have declared victory after the United States had completed its full withdrawal from Kabul airport, and now the Taliban are in complete control over the nation of Afghanistan. So, with that, what are the political consequences of this? How much do voters really care about Biden's mishandling of the Afghanistan withdrawal? We've seen so far about a little more than a dozen Americans killed from the withdrawal session, and hundreds upon hundreds of Afghans also killed from both the bombing attack that happened by ISIS-K and as well as U.S. drone strike on an ISIS-K vehicle. So with that, a lot of voters are upset, genuinely upset that Biden has mishandled the withdrawal session. In fact, his poll numbers are at this point almost dead even. But in the long term, what implications does this have on the Biden administration? To be honest, ultimately, even though the withdrawal session was messy, Americans are both very forgetful of things, and not only that, but there are also other issues that are more important to Americans, domestically speaking, than the issue on Afghanistan. If we look at the other problems that is currently happening in the United States, there's COVID-19, there's as well as, again, infrastructure, as we mentioned in previous videos, healthcare, taxes, all of these issues that have persisted through the Trump administration are still prevalent in the Biden administration, especially COVID-19. And for states in the South, in the southern region, COVID-19 is still a very big issue, and Hurricane Ida is also a rising issue, especially when it comes to power outages. So, since there's so many domestic issues that a lot of Americans are having to grapple with, when it comes to foreign issues, Americans usually don't care as much about foreign issues as they do with domestic issues, especially if there are a lot of domestic issues. We saw this in George H.W. Bush's presidency, where he made a lot of foreign achievements or achievements abroad, but back home there were mounting problems with his domestic issues. And as a result, even though he had a good foreign policy standpoint, he still lost because he didn't focus enough on the domestic side. Because the domestic side, if there is a big problem with the domestic side, that takes prevalence over what happens internationally. So, so the fact that there are many problems for the United States domestically speaking is a double-edged. I guess it's both a blessing and a curse for Biden, because if there wasn't these kinds of issues, if there wasn't a COVID-19 issue, then perhaps Americans would focus more on Afghanistan. They would care more about what's happening there. And certainly a lot of Americans still do care about Afghanistan, but it's not their top concern at this moment. Their top concern is COVID. Their top concern is keeping a level income. Their top concern is not being evicted from their houses. So when you have to focus on these kinds of issues that matter more for you, then you're not going to focus as much on issues that don't matter for you. You're not going to focus on issues related to Afghanistan. And ultimately, this kind of debate on Afghanistan just simply becomes another kind of culture war issue. It's like talking about Black Lives Matter. Like, sure, it's a pretty heated issue, and it's one where both sides do have some merits, but ultimately a lot of people don't really care about the Black Lives Matter movement. They care more about what's happening in their day-to-day lives, especially with COVID-19 still surging. So with conservatives repeatedly attacking Biden on this issue, it's going to become more and more of just like a right-wing issue rather than an American foreign policy issue. So there are some caveats to this, which is that, and it's mainly comes in the form of terrorism. If terrorism does grow in Afghanistan, then Biden will face the brunt of the criticism, and that will be an issue that Americans actually care about, because terrorism does directly impact American sentiment, and especially when it comes to fear. Terrorism exploits that fear, and a lot of Americans are exploited by that fear of terrorism. Thus, a lot of people will care if terrorism does rise in Afghanistan, and that's how Biden could get destroyed, politically speaking. But for now, when it comes to this issue, he has a lot of other issues he needs to face domestically. So getting out of Afghanistan, for a lot of people, they still support getting out of Afghanistan. Even Trump voters have said that they were hesitant to hold Biden accountable for the casualties. And ultimately, when it comes to the swing voters for 2022, they will more likely care about the issues of COVID-19. If Republicans strictly campaign on Biden and Biden being bad in Afghanistan, that's not a winning strategy for 2022, especially when it comes to Senate races. For 2022, it's going to be both a local matter in the general election, a local matter like day-to-day impacts, and then it's also going to be about the soul of the Republican Party. But that will be for another video, because that is a whole different complex topic. But again, for Afghanistan, we've seen this before where a lot of people just don't care about foreign policy issues if domestic issues take prevalence, if domestic issues are a large problem facing the American society. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.